We are going to paint up Santa Claus ornaments today. Stick around with me, kids. We're going to jump into this real quick right now. All right, now to start with, I have washed these carvings under soap and water for 2 to 3 minutes, okay? I scrubbed them both. That is something I did before I painted. There is no boiled linseed oil. There is no oil of any sort. I don't use that when I do my carvings, just the water, and they are wet. Like wet enough that when I do this, you can see a little bit of moisture coming out of them on this, because on the table here, because they are that wet. They look buttery smooth, don't they? They look beautiful, but no oil, just water. People keep asking that over and over again. No oil, just water. So, painting videos, if I haven't told you already, are not structured like all the other videos I do on the channel. So bear with me on that. We're going to use burnt umber for the pipe and the cigar. For the hat, we're going to paint it first with a base coat of deep burgundy from Americana, and then we're going to dry brush on some true red, pretty heavy on the dry brush, okay? For the beard, we're going to paint it gray with this medium gray from Folk Art, and then we're going to dry brush on some wicker white, and the hat band and the palm of the hat are going to get wicker white by itself. And then we're going to use this black here for the places we need our black paint. And we've got some warm beige for the skin tone, and we're going to water that down pretty good as we do that. So let's go ahead and start with our deep burgundy for the hats. Okay, but before we do that, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We need to make sure that we glue these in properly so they don't come out. So that cigar is expanded in there already. It might not come out. Will the pipe come out? It will. Okay. A little bit of CA glue will ensure it never comes out. And that's the goal. I want, when a customer gets this, to not have any problems with the pipe, because the pipe stays in the mouth. And that'll be fantastic. That's a good big size pipe. Okay, so a little bit of CA glue will take care of that. These cigars don't come out as easy when you push them in. Like you can shave them down and push them in real deep, and they stay in a little bit easier. So that's a thing. Now, for painting, like I said before, I don't care which brand paint I get. Some of them are different. The apple barrels seem a little bit more watered down than the others, but when it comes to applying them, I don't notice the difference. Other folks might. Your mileage may vary. For paintbrushes, I'm going to be using just cheap bag paintbrushes, like the ones you get in the containers for like a pack of 20 of them or whatever. Like those are the kind of paintbrushes I use. Nothing special. And I keep several paper towels on hand, ready, already folded up, ready to go. For the hats, as I paint this, I'm going to paint it upside down so that as the this gets painted, it can drip away from the rest of the unpainted carving. Okay, sorry, I've got a family and 3 kids. So I had to stop the video there for a minute while I took care of things. So what I do is I mix the paint on the carving. So I'm going to dip this in the carving, dip this in the water, and I'm just going to go ahead and start painting here. I'm holding the carving upside down like this so that as the paint runs, which it inevitably does, it can do so away from the unpainted sections of the carving. Very careful there along the top of the hat brim. I'm going to paint that white on the brim as the very last thing. That and the skin tone. So all dry brushing is going to be done beforehand, because inevitably that dry brushing gets a little bit outside the lines and in spots where I don't want it. So there we go. That hat is painted up. And we're going to set him down right there. And now we're going to do the other guy. Same color base, which is this deep burgundy. And watered down. Get more water. And just get him in there. I have to edit out that noise. It is the holiday season, so I'm getting a lot of sales on Etsy because Christmas, if you sell your wood carvings, is the time to make a little bit of cash. Everybody wants to buy a Christmas ornament, and ones like this, I mean, they sell pretty well. I'll say this too, if you're watching this video, if you want to make a Christmas ornament like this to sell on your Etsy, do it. Please do it. The more of us that are carving, the more I can encourage people to get into carving. I mean, I just want to do everything I can to encourage that, because it's a wonderful hobby and it's so fun. And the stuff you make now can be so much better for next year. He's looking great. That's a great hat. I really like that. Okay. So I believe we're good on those two for that red, and we're going to be doing another color now. So I'm going to pause the video for a minute. I'm going to take a hair dryer, and I'm going to dry those hats up real quick. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get on with it. Okay, both of those have been dried to the touch. Now we're going to dry brush red on top of that. Before we get to that point, we're going to paint the beards our gray and get that in. We'll do the dry brushing in 2 steps. Afterwards, dry brush the white on the beard and then dry brush the red on the hats. The thing about dry brushing, you have to remember, is you always dry brush a lighter color onto a darker color. People forget that so often when they're learning about dry brushing. And also, you need to have a wide disparity between the colors that you're dry brushing. You'll notice I barely have disparity between these 2 colors. And so it's not going to look as powerful as it could when we're dry brushing the hat, because there's not a huge disparity between these 2 colors. It's going to provide enough depth and texture to be interesting and fun and still look like a red hat. Because right now, this deep burgundy, that is far too deep a color. But when we do this red on top of it, it's going to pop and it's going to have this layered, textured effect that's going to look gorgeous. Now, you're going to see that look much more prominent, of course, with these 2, because between the gray and white, that's a very large disparity between the colors. And so it's really going to pop and really going to look neat. Excuse me. My allergy season, a lot of drainage, so I apologize for that. Okay, now same thing. We'll be pulling down and away from everything else we're painting. I don't want to get gray on the lip. I don't want to get it on the nose or the cigar. So I'm going to be very careful as I paint up into here. Try to get just right. Get up into that nostril. And if it's thin enough you can see the wood grain, there's nothing wrong with that. I like thin enough that you can see the wood grain. I got a little bit more paint to the side and a little bit more water. And I'm pulling it down. Most of that stuff is coming down here to the bottom. And then as I go to the top, I'm going to have far less on the brush, which is going to enable me to have a little bit more control to push it up in there and get it in place. If your carvings look plasticky, it's probably because you're using too much paint and not enough water. If you thin out that paint a bit, and I do that on the carving, it will start to look more natural and not like a plastic toy, you know? You want to be able to see the wood grain through the paint a little bit. And if you do that properly, it really brings it out. Now you can see those little divots from the knife and from that tool I was using to carve this. Those are really just, absolutely fascinating to me, and I love those. And those are going to catch the white as we dry brush on here. If you wanted to, another step you do more detail when you were carving was you could have just carved grooves in the beard. And that's great. I don't always like it. I kind of like the smooth effect and the way it looks. I enjoy that. So we need to paint that bottom section of the beard, don't we? Almost forgot that, because we carved that beard back and around a bit. So we'll paint that section up too, all the way down, like so. Did we get it all this time? We almost have. Much better. Much better. Now we can set him aside and be done with that part. A little more paint, a little more water. pulling all that down and then pushing up into the cheekbone like so. Pull most of that paint down. Didn't have very much on to start with. I'll say if you like these videos, if you enjoy them at all, if they're worthwhile to you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That really helps me out. You do that and I'll love you forever. On top of that, you should head over to Instagram. Give me a like and a follow over there. Not a like, give me a follow over there. If I see in your feed, when I see you pop up that you're a wood carver, I will follow you back. If you want me to follow you back as your wood carver, but you're private or something like that and I can't tell, well, say something, right? Interact with me. Hey, John, I carved too. If I say, hey, John, I carved too, in any comment, I'm like, oh, let me check this guy out. If you're private, I'm gonna request that I follow you just to see if you'll let me, because I want to see your carvings. I like having my Instagram feed full of carvings of other wood carvers. And I go there and I can see all that, and it's just, yes, my wood carving break through the day when I'm working. It's a chance to just kind of unwind. And Instagram really gives that to me, helps me focus on my carvings and on other people's carvings and see what's happening in the carving community. A little hard getting in around that pipe there, but I think I managed. And doing it without getting that lip. All right, now let's get that mustache here along the top. A little too much paint on there. Wipe it off there, because it'll run if I take too much into here. I don't want it to run. That's looking great though. He's looking great. And just pull all those heavy spots, pulling down, cleaning them up. Anywhere it's real heavy, I'm trying to like pull that paint to flatten it out and streak it out to where it's as thin as I can make it on that wood. And I believe that we did pretty well. So there's another one done. Now I'm going to pause the video for a minute and I'm going to hair dry them to dry them up. Okay, they are now dry to the touch, moving right along, making good timing. So let's look at doing our dry brushing of the white. First off, I'm going to dry this brush up. Normally I have this brush dry for my dry brushing prior to doing anything, but I was doing painting earlier today already because it's Christmas season. I'm trying to get Christmas carvings done, and I need to do Santas, which is why we're doing a Santa carving tutorial today, because I need to carve Santas for the Etsy shop. So these guys are going up on Etsy as soon as I get done with this video. Okay, so I am using a 1/2-inch oval mop to do my dry brushing. You can see this is a very short paintbrush, right? Well, I got another one over here ready to go for when that one goes bad. It didn't start off that short. These are the exact same paintbrushes, but one is far longer and softer. Dry brushing is rough on a paintbrush, okay? Because we're gonna be constantly rubbing it into something, and the way you do that, it just beats up on a paintbrush. So keep that in mind. Don't do it with your best brush. I bought a paintbrush specifically for that, so I got this 1/2-inch oval mop from Master's Touch just to do that. But you can use any paintbrush you want. I would suggest not using a smaller paintbrush like those cheaper acrylic paintbrushes like that one. That takes way too long. This is far easier to dry brush with. Now, for dry brushing, you want to fill the paintbrush with paint, and then you wipe it all off. You're gonna let the paint come out very slowly, a little bit at a time, and that's what gives you that nice dry brushing effect. And for those of you who watch painting videos all the time, you guys have heard this from me 100 times. But I get that when it comes to painting videos, some folks just want to see how I paint each individual carving and what all goes into it. But right now I'm just wiping the paint off. It's hard to tell with white, but you want to get to where it's barely coming off there, right? Look at it on the hand a little bit easier. So that side is still pretty heavy. And that's pretty good. Okay, so wipe that hand off on a clean one. And then I'm going to take this guy and I'm just going to streak down like this. Streaking down. And you can see those cut lines. Look at how they pop right there. Isn't that beautiful? Because they're catching more of that white than the flat surface is. That's part of what I love about this, because it shows off every individual cut line. You see? You can see them all so clearly. And you could texture this with a wood carving tool and you'd get a more realistic looking, Santa. But I don't necessarily want that. I mean, this guy here with the way that dry brush, that's looking so neat to me. I really enjoy that. I mean, I don't know. Everyone's different. That's the key there. Everyone's different. We're all built different. We like different things, And so I make carvings for people who like carvings like this. If you like that look, then this is the channel for you. I try to make it a channel for everybody, really, because I want everyone to grow in carving. I want everyone to get a chance to try it and do more with it. It's such a fun hobby. Ooh, I forgot to paint the back side, the other one. I can do that. Yeah, that's looking great. So I've got St. Bernard in the house. And I don't know if you can hear this in the camera right now, but she's over in the corner and she's growling in her sleep. I don't know what she's found in her dream, but she's upset about it and she's trying to let it know that it needs to stop. That poor dumb dog. She's a good dog, but she's dumb. Boy, she's dumber than a box of rocks, I tell you. Okay. So we're just cleaning this paintbrush out as best we can. It's not too hard to clean it out with white because white's not going to, when it bleeds, it doesn't bleed terribly. Right? If you did red and then did white afterwards, that would bleed terribly. But we're doing white and doing red afterwards, so it's not going to bleed as much. So this is the true red, nice and bright, and we're going to dry brush this on the hat the same way that we did the white on the beard. Okay. So, new paper towel. I filled this up, and you're going to be able to see this much more clearly for the dry brushing. And now we're just going to wipe it off. Just doing concentric circles, getting wider as I go, and just wiping off, spinning the paintbrush a little bit, getting it off all the edges to where it's just barely coming off of there, okay? Once I do that, we are just going to be pretty heavy and liberal and just push it all over. And you're not going to see in the camera much of a difference. But man, when it dries and when you get close up to it, the texture here, because you're seeing just the light, you're seeing two different reds, one deeper underneath and then one on top. And as it dries, it really just gives a texture to that hat that is amazing. And it makes it look like you took a lot of time painting this. It makes it look like you put a lot of care into it. It makes it look like a better thing, like someone really cared about it far more than just a flat red, And that's fantastic. So same thing. It doesn't take long to do that. You can kind of see it better here, maybe a little bit. You can see that section that's darker right there. It's hard to see when it's wet. Yeah. So let's see if we can dry it up a little bit. Okay. I have dried them up with the hair dryer. Can you see that texture? Now look at that. How it's darker and it's lighter. That texture really pops, especially after I do the antiquing solution with boiled linseed oil afterwards. Like it really pops and it looks vibrant and wonderful. So that's why we're doing the dry brushing. But this is what I was talking about, where that the difference between the colors here is not much. And so it's hard to see. It's harder to see. It's not a big effect, but it's enough, right? If I went with a deeper, like a purple, and then the red on top of it, that would be a larger contrast. And so it would pop much more. So that's an option you have too. Or you can go with a much lighter red than true red, and that would make it pop more from the burgundy as well. So, okay, next we're going to be using a smaller paintbrush again. So back to our regular little acrylic paintbrush, and we're going to paint the white. Actually, we're going to paint the white or the beige next. Let's do our skin tone next. So we're gonna do our beige, okay? I'm gonna put 2 drops of beige. Whatever amount of beige you do at least that much or a little bit more water. So I'd say 60% water, 40% beige. And then we're just going to mix it up right here. Most of my stuff I mix up on the carving itself, but for the skin tone, I need this to be mixed up properly and evenly and thinly, because I don't want it to be plasticky. And it's in a small area. It's hard to mix on the carving. And I'm using far more water for the beige than I would for any other color. Like the red, it's not nearly watered down as much as this beige is going to be. So I'm just going to keep stirring it. So I feel like I got all the chunks out. And it's just very, very wet. It's very damp. Okay? And be very careful with it. I dip it in here. Well, up close to the camera, and you're going to see like I'm dipping it on there, right? I'm not painting as much as I'm just kind of soaking the wood here in the general pattern of the face. I don't mind if I get it on the hat band too much, because we're going to paint that hat band white. That's why I'm doing this first. And this stuff is easy to cover up, but it's not changing the color much. Now, if you're not planning on antiquing, you could absolutely leave the wood grain itself as the color of your skin. And that's a wonderful effect. I do like that. But the antiquing solution I use will darken up the face too much, and it doesn't look like any natural human skin tone, no matter what race you are at all. It just doesn't look great. But this works out pretty well for a Santa, I think. So now we're gonna do a little bit more too on that lip. I'm gonna dip it down there. Oh, it's almost too much. Yeah, it's a bit too much. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a paper towel and dry up along the bottom of that lip, along the top. And there we go, there's a skin tone for Santa. Set him aside and let's do the other one. Do do do. Da da da. Yeah. Same thing, it's just really easy to run. Oh, don't drop your carving. That's number one. Only a terrible carver would drop their carving on their carving desk. Someone who's obviously a rank amateur, right? A master carver, they wouldn't do that. You'll see Dave Stetson dropping his carvings. You'll see Wayne Larimore dropping his carvings. No, sir, you don't. I'm pretty hard on myself. I know I am. Well, that's okay, though. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's get that bottom lip now. And take a little bit less than we did a minute ago. And we're still going to dry it up with a paper towel. But it's just fine. Okay. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, we're going to get the hair dryer out and dry both these guys up. Okay, and they're all dried up. So now we're going to get all of our white done for the rest of this thing here. And the white, we're not going to water that down. We're just going to paint that directly on. I think the white looks just fine like that. We are going to make sure that we don't leave it thick and heavy. We're not going to leave it blotchy. So I'm going to take that white on the paintbrush, put a little bit there, a little bit here, and right now I'm just spreading it out. And once I get spread out from there, I'm going to push it all around into every nook, cranny the white needs to get into. But I don't get too thick by spreading it out on the carving first. You start at one side with a heavy brush, you'll wind up getting one side really thick and not very much on the other side, so you want to getting more paint on your paintbrush and then bring it back over the carving, and you'll end up with far more paint than you really want to have on the carving, or more than you intended to, which is why spreading it out beforehand along that path can really work to your advantage. If you wind up not having enough, it's easy to get a little bit more if you're careful, if you're conscious about it. You can see right now, I didn't carve the saw marks off that section right there. And you can see how it's taking the paint differently. Right, there it is. You can see that pattern to it. I don't like that. But it is what it is now. I've already got some paint on him. Well, I could take a knife and try to fix him. And you could do the same on yours if you messed up. Just something to keep in mind. Okay, a little bit more white paint in that corner there. And that's fantastic. And all we gotta do is paint that pipe on this guy, and he's gonna be done. And you don't have to paint this white. You could paint some off-color, old world Santa colors if you wanted to. Spread that out a bit. A little bit too much in the paintbrush there. There we go. Dog! Sorry, she is still over there whimpering. Now she's looking at me like, why'd you wake me up? Does anyone else have to do that? Do you have to wake your dog up if they're having a nightmare? I feel bad for her, you know. She's over there. She's obviously stressed out. Yet she's got anxiety going on. She's riddled with fear, guilt, whatever it is. Maybe the kids are in danger in her dream and she's having to go save them. I don't know. Like I'd want to be woken up if I was having a nightmare. Silly dog. Alrighty, here we go. Absolutely wonderful. So that is that hat. I'm going to hair dry them again. Okay, and so we got them all dry to the touch. Now we're going to be using burnt umber, which I just poured a little bit into the thing right there, just from Apple Barrel burnt umber, and we're going to paint up the cigar and the pipe the same way. Now, if you have a little bit of black walnut Danish oil, you can use that right now as well, and that does provide a neat effect because you can still see the wood grain and it looks more like a pipe. But I'm going to go with the burnt umber because most people don't have Danish oil, sitting around all the time. So I'm going to do that, dip it in a little bit of water. So we're going to thin this out a little bit, okay, and not use it too thick. It's going to come on thick no matter how you do it. But we're going to start down there and try to work it up. See how good we can do it thinning it out. Get it down in there too. More water. Being mindful of where you're letting that drip, right? So I'm keeping the carving itself on top or away from the pipe, so that when it does drip, as it inevitably will, it drips away from all of the painted sections that I have completed. That's working out pretty well. This is a neat pipe. It turned out really well. I'm going to wind up making a couple more of these guys like this, putting them up on Etsy. As a pipe smoker, I feel like having pipe smoking artifacts in my Etsy is just like an absolute must, you know? And he does look great, doesn't he? That's fantastic. I love it. A little bit more paint, just really tipping the corner of it in there. And then pushing it right up to that edge. There we go. And he's done. Much easier to paint this guy. You know, I got the black out, and when I went to mention like what I was using the black for, I couldn't think of what I was using for, and I don't think I'm going to use it. I don't think there's anything to use it on. So, good times. A little bit more paint. Same things with the pipe. Keep it angled down and away from the carving, so you can keep anything that runs from contaminating your lips or your mustache. Paint that end up. Now we're going to need to paint a little bit of gray on the end of that cigar for the ash. So we're going to dry this with a hairdryer. Yet again, I know, yet again. And then we'll have these guys all finished up and go antique them. All right, one moment. All right, we're back. We got all of that dried up. We're going to take, for our last little bit of painting, a little bit of gray paint after I clean this brush out. A little bit of gray paint. And we're going to paint just the tip of this cigar to simulate our ash on Santa's cigar. As every good Santa should have, he should have a cigar. That's from the stories, right? You lay out for Santa what? Cookies, milk, and open up your humidor. Make sure Santa has a fresh stogie. There we go. And that is Santa with a cigar. I love that. That's so fun. All right, I'm going to dry this guy up, then I'm going to antique him, and I'll show you what they look like then. And there we have it. All finished up. Done, complete, and ready to post. Actually, there's one last thing we can do. We need to put ornament hooks in the top. So I keep these on hand all the time and just press and turn. Basswood is soft enough that you don't have to drill a pilot hole or anything to do this. You just keep constant pressure and then just start turning, and you're going to put your ornament hooks right in the top like that, and then make sure sign the back of your carvings. But that guy's all done. All right, folks, and there's the money shot, all painted up, all finished up, and I think they turned out just wonderful. I love the look of these guys, and yeah. And folks, that's all I've got for you today. Listen, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below, and I really appreciate it. If you want to help support the channel, I've got some stickers available over on Etsy that you can go check out. This is my carving sticker. My personal favorite, Wood Carvings by Johnny. Do you even carve, bro? I make wood chips. And the fan favorite, Strop Yet? You don't have to do that though, so don't worry about it if you don't want to. Head over to Instagram, give me a like and a follow over there. If I see that you're a wood carver, I'm gonna follow you back. And outside of that, watch one of these other videos popping up on the screen here. And thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Bye.